Thank you very much for having me here today, and thanks to Beck for inviting me. It's lovely to speak to you all about what I've been banging on for nearly 20 years in January next year. So what is best practice consumer and community involvement? It's about when consumers and community members work in partnership with researchers, clinicians and students to shape decisions about research priorities, policy and practice. And we just heard a great example of what's important to the community. So it's really about getting the whole picture. And I have been saying to researchers since I started in 2004, working with Fiona Stanley and Darcy Holman, without that voice and without that lived experience of people who are the ultimate end users of your research, you are not getting the whole picture. Even if you have the condition or you've lived in the situation yourself, you've still got your researcher hat on. So it's always really important to remember the need for the whole picture. So what is the difference? We've heard a lot about cohorts and about participants, and what I'm going to talk to you about is the middle part of this. There's participation, and that's the people who take part in the studies, who are the Gen 1, Gen 2 and now Gen 3s. They're the people taking part in research, and this is from the National Health and Medical Research Council, and its definitions that are accepted around the world. When I talk about involvement, I'm talking, as I said, about community members working in partnership with researchers to shape decisions about research. And then, of course, there's engagement, and there's conversations between researchers, research organisations and the community. But that doesn't mean to say that there's actually involvement in there. So sometimes those terms are interchangeable and not always used correctly, but that's what I'm talking about today. So from my perspective, Fiona probably would think that this started a little bit earlier than 2002, but I broke it down into 4 areas from 2002 to 2023. So it's 21 years of involvement. That fitted nicely because I wanted to say happy 21st birthday. So 23rd birthday doesn't quite sound the same. So congratulations to everyone who's been involved. Now those early activities, a consultant, not only did Garth Kendall go to the UK, but then a consultant came and worked at Telethon Kids and provided advice about how you could retain people and how people could be better involved in the study. And from that, a communications manager was appointed around the same time as what I started in 2004. So when I first heard about the Raine study, and I hadn't heard about it before I went to work at Telethon Kids, I was really surprised that these people got up at 5 o'clock in the morning or went and gave their blood and had this and that and everything done to them, and yet nobody had ever asked the parents particularly what was important to them about what needed to be researched. And I was quite surprised about that. And I remember Garth Kendall saying to me, oh, they might want to know about, alcoholism and suicide and things like that, and we're not quite prepared for that, Anne. But anyway, I talked them into it, and I just want to say the success of the 20 years that we've been, having a real involvement program in Australia is because Fiona always said yes. And, even if she thought it was a crazy idea, and there was a few of them where she sort of said, no, I'm not sure, Anne, she still said yes. So I think we can all be proud of the involvement activities that have happened in this state. But anyway, I talked them into having a family forum to ask parents, carers, and they called them crew members at the time. And those of you who are Raine study Gen 2 would probably be remembered being referred to as crew members. I'm not sure why, but anyway. So we asked them, do you want to be involved in the study management? How do you want to be involved? What can we do to make it easier for you to be involved? And what support do you need for that to happen? And I think, looking back, we had about 27 or 29 families come, and there was some that brought the mother, father, and the young person with them, and some was just, I think there was, as per usual, more women there than anyone else. But so what the parents told us was most parents found the concept of consumer involvement difficult to understand. Parents talked about fundraising and promotion in shopping centres, and this one really sticks with me because parents were happy with the way the study was going and they felt loyal and supportive of the professors Newnham and Stanley. And someone said to me, "We don't really need you interfering in the Raine study." So never one to take that as a challenge. We moved on. But there were a whole lot of young people there and they wanted to have a young people's management committee that could provide feedback to the study. And I went back and read these old documents, so it was quite enlightening for me to see how progressive these kids were. They were concerned about managing possible conflicts that might arise between the students. I don't know why, but anyway. An adult or researcher could help us keep order. And it was important to leave the research to the people who knew what they were doing, that is, the researchers. So there we started on a journey. So in 2006, what was known as the T team was established, and some of those people are here, Roland. I'm not picking on anyone. But we held regular meetings between the Raine staff, myself as a consumer advocate, and the T team. Now, I did have brown hair when I started doing this, but I felt, like Laurie was saying, oh my goodness, those kids, I think their whole thing was to, see how they could actually shock me. And a few times they did shock me. So we worked with them and they had input into the follow-up study. They had input into consent forms, and one person said that looking at the consent forms, there's no names, no factual, Roland, but the facts are, this one person said, the only thing that I knew what it meant in the whole information sheet was the word sex. So that person was a young man at the time. So they gave feedback into the topics for the newsletter. I remember the comms manager thought she did the best job in the world, and these young people told her, no, we never read it. Maybe our mum does sometimes, but, we're not interested in it. So it was really, in your face and what they wanted. So they gave advice on the first community conversation, or roundtable as Fiona called it. And you can see there, Fiona, we had lots of fun at those meetings. They were great, they were forthright, they came forward. One young person said, you might think of me as participant 23, but this is my story that you are using again and again and again, and I want to know the results of what you're doing. So it was quite enlightening to them. And then we moved on to the fact that they were going to do their sperm testing, these boys. Oh, well, my goodness, did they want to tell me how they needed magazines in the rooms? And as I said, I used to have brown hair. It was all a bit much for me. They had lots to say and we had lots of fun. And looking back, it was fabulous to see, how open and forthright they were. So the T team was growing up and they were expanding. They held more community conversations to help seek advice and input. And then there was a 25-year forum. I'm not sure if that was actually an upcoming follow-up, but there were 50 participants and 10 plus researchers. I'm not sure was the plus. Involved in a World Cafe style workshop where they went around and these participants heard about the various projects that were happening. So it was really the start in the change of making sure that the community had a say. And then at the end of this period of time in 2016, I worked with Peter and Leon and the team that I was working with to develop a structure of having the community voice right throughout the Raine study. And so there were people on the board, on the Scientific Advisory Committee, the Operations Management Committee, and now, of course, I see that there's been a Community Advisory Committee. And, you know, when I look back now over 20 years, I feel really proud of all of the work that you've done. That revamping of that structure, and there's Roland, he's grown up a bit from the first picture I showed of you, Roland. Gen 1 and Gen 2 participant groups came together. They were a bit unsure about what this involvement activities would mean for them. And so we held on a Saturday, out they came, and we held a training workshop for them all to come and learn what it meant to be effective as community members of a research team or a research structure. And as I said, when I talked with Diane and Gracie provided some information about this, it was really fabulous to hear that this is not only continued but growing. So I think you can all feel really proud of that. So there's now Gen 1 and Gen 2 cohort members on all committees. I'm pleased to hear that no babies are on there yet. The Community Advisory Committee has 20 members, and that's pretty astounding, really, when you think about it, that people give their time. In 2021, there was a survey done about what are the most important areas of health research for people, and the top responses were mental health and wellbeing, genetic effects on health and wellbeing, and we've just heard two presentations about that. Well, actually, physical activity, we've heard about that, and diet. So those things were seen to be really important to the participants and the people who are having a say. So in conclusion, having an opportunity to share in the success of the involvement activities for the Raine study has been an absolute privilege for me. I've learned about young boys and the need for magazines when they're doing testing. I've learned about young girls and about how they want to be treated. And, there was one stage someone wanted them to do photos of whether they had pubic hair, and these girls said, I'm just not doing that. So thankfully that study didn't go ahead. But, it was so brave of these kids to speak up about this. So I've been continually inspired by people like Ditsa, who's there with her baby, and she told me on the 30th anniversary of Telethon Kids, Fiona, that it was because of the Raine study was the main reason why she considered and has become a GP, and I believe she's just doing her specialist training like that. So it's inspiring of all the people who have contributed as participants, parents and grandparents, and those who have worked in the Raine study, and there's some of you still here, Alex, and good on you all, and I just can say, yes, you do have a best practice model. I probably won't be around for your 42nd birthday, but who knows, and if I will, I won't be doing these sort of talks, so thanks for having me.